Hey, good evening, guys. I wanted to keep my promise to you and upload a short piece of encouragement from you. I know that at the church we've been going through First Peter, and it's my conviction that we ought to hold off on First Peter until the next time we can assemble together in person. But because of the inclement weather, wanted to send something out for us for tonight or for tomorrow morning on the Lord's Day. But of course, we have, if the forecasters are correct, some pretty nasty weather coming our way tomorrow morning, which is Sunday. So I just wanted to change text briefly, and I wanted to look at just two verses from the letter of Hebrews. So if you have your copy of the scriptures with you, or if you want to pull it up on your phone or just listen, but it's two verses from Hebrews chapter 10. And it's verses 24 and 25. That's what I wanted to speak on. And really, it's just a very fundamental passage in the letter of Hebrews, where the writer is writing with one overarching theme, which is that Jesus is the great and final high priest, that we don't look to anyone else but Christ alone. And the issue that the original recipients of the letter of Hebrews were facing, the issue that they were facing was the temptation to fall away, to fall back into some sort of legalistic observation of dietary laws of Judaism, hence the strong language against what's called the Judaizers, or people trying to convince people the way to be a good Christian, if you will, is to revert very back to the very thing out of which they were delivered, which is legalism. And so the writer of Hebrews is writing in these two verses that I want to focus on with you tonight, or whenever you have an opportunity to look at them with me. The two verses come from Hebrews chapter 10, and I'm going to read them. I'm reading from the ESV, Hebrews 10, verses 24 and 25, and this is what the word of the Lord says there. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. I apologize for my phone going off while I was recording that. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, all the more as you see the day drawing near. So again, just to kind of refresh, due to the storms rolling into our part of the world, we're having to forego assembling tomorrow. It looks like we may get half an inch or more of ice, and ice is not friendly to roads, especially where we live. We're praying that the power stays on and that the trees don't fall on the power lines, but this storm may be a real monster, so we'll see. But I just want to encourage you with 7 basic things that come right out of these two verses here. My dog is whining down here at the bottom, so I apologize for that. Let me give you 7 quick things as we go through these two verses. The first command that the writer gives there in Hebrews is simply to hold fast, to hold fast. And I don't know that I have to make much commentary or exposition of that, but it comes right there in verse 24, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. We have to hold fast. We have to not fall away. We have to cling to, as the old hymn says, the old rugged cross. But we have to hold fast to our faith, to press on, to not fall back. And the second thing that the writer says there is we're to hold fast to what? To the confession of our hope. The confession of our hope. What is the confession of our hope? Well, the confession, the great first confession of the faith, is that Jesus is Lord, right? Nobody else is Lord. I'm certainly not the Lord as an under shepherd or as a Bible teacher, but the confession of our hope is in the person and work of Christ, right? What God has done in the person and work of Christ, how redemption has been accomplished and how redemption is applied to the life of all believers. We're to hold fast to what the confession of our hope. And in what manner, like what sort of disposition should we have in that confession of our hope? Well, it is one that is without wavering, right? It is an unwavering hope. It is that steadfastness that we're to inculcate as believers. We are not to waver in that. And you have to understand, like, context, right? So the writer is writing to an audience of people who are tempted to fall away, tempted to go back into and revert into some sort of legalism, to go back into thinking that dietary laws will sanctify a person, that not eating shellfish will sanctify you, right? Even though the New Testament clearly teaches that God has declared all foods clean. Rise, Peter, kill and eat, from the book of Acts, for example. So we are to hold fast. So what are we to hold fast? The confession of our hope, the confession that Christ is Lord. And we're to do that with a disposition and an inculcated characteristic of being without wavering. And what is the reason that the writer says there that we're to do that? Well, we're to do that because God is faithful, right? Because God is faithful. Let us consider how to stir up one another. How to, some translations use the verb there to provoke, right? To provoke one another, or to stir up one another to love and good works. The Puritan pastor Thomas Watson wrote about these two verses this short paragraph. He said, "One Christian conversing with another is a means to confirm him. As the stones in an arch help to strengthen one another, one Christian, by imparting his experience, heats and quickens another. How does grace flourish? By holy conference," Watson writes. "A Christian by good discourse drops the oil upon another that makes the lamp of his faith burn brighter." Man, that's so encouraging, right? That image there, a Christian by good discourse, right? The conversation, the encouragement of the saints, it drops the oil upon another that makes the lamp of the other of his faith burn brighter. Man, that's such a beautiful image there. Of those same verses, James Haldane, one of the Haldane brothers, wrote this. He said, "In times of persecution," and that's what these first century Christians were enduring. "In times of persecution, the disciples were laid under much temptations to forsake the assembling of themselves together. They might agree that they could pray and read the scripture at home, and no doubt there might be a situation in which a believer might be justified in absenting himself. But our love is apt to wax cold, and we are prone to neglect what only particular circumstances may warrant us to omit." You see what Haldane is saying there? Like, of course, life happens, right? Let's be reasonable. Here we are with this weather rolling in tonight and tomorrow morning. It's going to be nasty here in our neck of the woods in Georgia. Probably, Kentucky and Tennessee and some other parts of the country have already getting hammered. But it's coming to our neck of the woods, overnight, and then tomorrow especially. The temperatures are going to drop very low for us down here in the south. And what Haldane is saying is like, yeah, of course there are times when circumstances are beyond our control. Our kids get sick, we get sick, life happens, bad weather happens, right? Got it, got the t-shirt, right? Pretty basic stuff. But all he's saying is that those things notwithstanding, right, our longing ought to be to want to be together, to want to assemble with the saints. Why? I remember growing up, there was a country preacher that I used to listen to, kind of cut my teeth on. And he gave an example one time in one of his sermons that I've never forgotten. And he said that a Christian can be compared to a coal in a grill or in a fire, like a piece of charcoal. And he said, that piece of coal, as long as it's with those other pieces of coal that are lit, that piece of coal will generate lots of heat and light. And he said, but if you take one coal and you pull it out, right, you take it away from the fire, you take it from the assembly of those other pieces of charcoal, that coal by itself very soon will go out. It will grow cold and it will go out. And then, but what is coal for? Coal, God put coal in the ground for us to burn. And so I love that image from that pastor, that preacher, of the Christian being like that piece of coal. Can a piece of coal make it for a couple of minutes out, by himself or herself and have a little bit of heat left? Yeah, for a little bit. But what does that coal need? That coal needs to be put back in the grill, back in the fire, if you will, by the other pieces of coal, so that it will do what coal is designed to do: burn with heat and light and generate that energy, right? But that coal has to be with the body. So I just want to leave you. I know this is very short and very fundamental, but the fundamentals are called fundamentals for a reason, because they're important. They're the basics upon which we build. So the encouragement I just want to leave with you tonight or in the morning or whenever you have an opportunity to watch this is, let us learn, from this episode, this weather that's coming in our neck of the woods. Let us learn the importance of the saints gathering and be faithful to do exactly what the text says. Hold fast. Hold fast to what? The confession of our hope. What is that confession? That Jesus is Lord. And in what manner are we to do that? We're to do that unwaveringly, right? As the text says, without wavering. What is the reason that we're to do that? What is the reason that we're to persevere in the faith? Because God is faithful. That's our paradigm. That's the supreme paragon by which we measure ourselves. So let us consider what? How to stir up one another. And what is the end that the writer says there? What is the goal, the teleology, the telos, to which we are to stir one another up, right? Not to be mean-spirited. That's not what the writer means. We're to stir up each other to what end? To love and good works. So again, I hope that was encouraging for you tonight or tomorrow whenever you have an opportunity. Hope that was encouraging from you from the letter of Hebrews. Very fundamental, but very applicable. So until next time, guys, I hope this was helpful for you, and I really appreciate you tuning in. See you next time.